A billionaire tried to destroy him in front of the whole world. But what happened next shocked everyone. James Carter waited 5 long years for revenge. 5 years since Keanu turned down his $200 million movie deal. 5 years of anger hidden behind fake smiles. At Hollywood's biggest party of the year, James made his move. He handed Keanu a violin and gave him a challenge that would change everything. Play a 5-minute solo in 1 month, or tell everyone you're just a lucky fake, James said with an evil smile. What James didn't know was that this violin would wake up something Keanu had buried for 32 years. A forgotten talent, a special teacher's last wish, and a secret that would shock the world. 1 month. 1 performance. 1 chance to turn shame into glory. But when Keanu walked onto that stage, nobody, especially not James, was ready for what came next. The charity event at the Monarch Grand Hotel in Beverly Hills was where rich people showed off their money. Movie bosses mixed with famous actresses. Directors whose names everyone knew talked with investors who could make or break dreams. This wasn't just a party. This was a war zone dressed up in silk and champagne. Among all the fancy guests, one man stood out because he didn't try to stand out. Keanu Reeves walked through the main door wearing a simple black suit. No big group following him. No fancy car service. He drove himself here, waved nicely at photographers, and entered the ballroom like a normal person. But not everyone liked this simple approach. Across the room, watching Keanu with angry eyes, stood James Parker. As the CEO of Apex Studios, James came from old money and old hatred. His silver hair was perfect. His tuxedo cost more than most people make in a month. His smile never reached his cold blue eyes. James came from a family that was rich for many generations. He looked down on people who built their own success. He thought they were just lucky, not really talented. And Keanu Reeves, with his humble start and refusal to play Hollywood's game, was everything James hated. But there was more to James's hate than just snobbery. 5 years ago, James offered Keanu the main role in what was supposed to be Apex Studios' biggest movie ever, a $200 million action film. Keanu read the script and said no. Not quietly, but publicly. Keanu explained that the script showed too much pointless violence and had content he found wrong. He couldn't be part of it. The result was terrible. Other actors, respecting Keanu's choice, also backed out. When the film finally got made with unknown actors, it flopped. James lost almost everything. He had to sell parts of his own company just to survive. It took him 3 painful years to rebuild. And through it all, he blamed one person, Keanu Reeves. Standing next to James was Martha Silver, the vice president of Apex Studios. She was the one who did the dirty work. Threats delivered with smiles. Careers quietly destroyed. She noticed where her boss was looking. There he is. The one who cost you everything. James's jaw got tight. Look at him walking in here like he belongs. He's nothing but a lucky fool who stumbled into fame. The main event of the evening was the charity auction. Among rare paintings and jewelry, the centerpiece caught everyone's eye. In a glass case under soft lights was a beautiful violin. Its body glowed with a rich amber color. The wood was aged to perfection over more than a century. The instrument once belonged to a famous violin player and was worth several $millions. James stood near the violin case, talking loudly about his art collection. You see, real culture can't be bought overnight, he announced. It must be inherited, grown over generations. Some people just have it in their blood. He paused, looking across the room at Keanu. And some never will. Keanu, not knowing he was being watched, had walked toward the violin display. He stood before the glass case, his face unreadable, but his eyes showing a distant sadness. He wasn't thinking about the violin's price. He was thinking about Samuel Harris. 32 years ago, when Keanu was preparing for his role in a Shakespeare film, he was given a violin teacher. That teacher was Samuel Harris, a man in his 60s with kind eyes and a gift for finding music in unlikely students. Samuel was never famous. He taught private lessons to pay his bills and played at small places that barely paid enough. But he had something money couldn't buy: passion, patience, and an amazing ability to see potential where others saw nothing. During those 4 months, Samuel did more than teach Keanu technique. He opened a door to a world Keanu never knew existed. You have a gift, Samuel told him one afternoon. Not in your fingers. Not yet. But in your ears. You hear what the music is trying to say. That can't be taught. That is born. When filming ended, life moved on. The violin was put aside, then forgotten. Samuel Harris passed away 10 years ago. Keanu learned about it months after the funeral. The letter told him that Samuel had left something for him, his violin. But Keanu, filled with grief and regret, never claimed it. Now, standing before this different violin, Keanu felt the weight of those lost years. His thinking was interrupted by a voice full of hate. Well, our action movie hero is looking at fancy instruments. Keanu turned to find James approaching, Martha at his side. Several guests moved closer, sensing drama. James stopped a few feet away. Tell me, Keanu, do you even know what this is? Or do you think it's some kind of movie prop? I know it's a violin, Keanu replied calmly. A beautiful one. James's laugh was loud and fake. Perhaps next he'll tell us he knows how to play. I learned once. A long time ago. For a film. For a film. James shook his head. That's not knowing how to play music. That's pretending. That's what you do, isn't it? Pretend to be things you're not. Keanu didn't respond to the insult. He just stood there, his face unchanged. This only made James angrier. You know what I see when I look at you? A man who got lucky, who stumbled into fame without earning it. No class, no culture, no real talent. Martha chose this moment to make her move. She stepped forward, then stumbled dramatically into Keanu. The glass of red wine she was holding splashed across his jacket. Oh my goodness! Martha exclaimed with fake concern. How clumsy of me. Keanu looked down at his stained jacket. It's all right. Accidents happen. But Martha was already making a scene, drawing attention. Photographers turned their cameras toward the commotion. James seized the moment. This is exactly the problem with Hollywood today. People without any real class being celebrated as stars. A familiar voice cut through the noise. That's enough. Lisa Martinez pushed through the crowd, her dark eyes blazing. The young actress was one of Keanu's closest friends. He had helped her when she was starting out, treated her as an equal when others ignored her. She stepped between Keanu and James. This is harassment, and everyone here knows it. James's smile grew wider. I'm simply making an observation. If our beloved action star has any real talent beyond memorizing lines, let him show it. He pointed at the violin. You claim you learned to play decades ago. Prove it. Play something for us. The crowd fell silent. All eyes turned to Keanu. Lisa shook her head. This is ridiculous. No one has to perform on command. Of course not, James agreed smoothly. He can simply walk away and everyone here will know the truth. That he's exactly what I said, a lucky pretender. The silence stretched. Keanu could feel every eye on him. He saw the smirks on some faces, the pity on others. He saw Lisa's worried eyes. But somewhere deeper, he felt something stirring. A memory of Samuel Harris's patient voice. A whisper from 32 years ago. You have a gift. You hear what the music is trying to say. All right, Keanu said quietly. Lisa grabbed his arm. Keanu, no. You don't have to do this. He placed his hand gently over hers. I know, but I want to. James's eyes gleamed with victory. How admirable. But let's make this interesting. Not tonight. 1 month from now at the National Film Festival. Every major person in our industry will be there. He held up his hand. You'll perform a violin solo. 5 minutes minimum. A complete piece in front of everyone who matters. The crowd buzzed with excitement. And the stakes? James continued. If you fail, or if your performance is the embarrassment I expect, you'll publicly apologize. You'll admit that you've been nothing but a lucky accident. And if I succeed? Keanu asked. James laughed. If by some miracle you deliver a good performance, I'll donate $5 million to any charity you choose. But we both know that won't happen. Lisa stepped forward. This is insane. Keanu, please. You haven't played in over 30 years. Keanu looked at her, and something in his eyes made her stop. There was determination there, but also something that looked almost like peace. He turned back to James and extended his hand. You have a deal. The handshake was brief but firm. The crowd erupted in whispers. By morning, this would be all over entertainment news. James leaned in close, his voice dropping. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. I'm going to destroy you. Keanu met his gaze steadily. We'll see. As Lisa and Keanu left the party, she pulled him aside. Her hands were shaking. Have you lost your mind? You can't learn violin in 4 weeks. Keanu watched James walk away, then looked back at the violin in its glass case. There was someone, he said quietly, who once believed I could play. Really play. Not just pretend. His voice dropped lower. He passed away before I could prove him right. Maybe it's time I did. Lisa stared at him, understanding slowly dawning. Samuel, the teacher from that Shakespeare film. Keanu nodded. He left me his violin when he died. I never claimed it. I was afraid. Afraid of trying and failing. He took a deep breath. Maybe James did me a favor tonight. Maybe I needed someone to push me toward what I should have done years ago. Lisa shook her head, but there was a hint of a smile beneath her worry. You're the strangest man I've ever met. And also the best. She squeezed his hand. Whatever happens, I'm with you. The next morning, Lisa began searching for violin teachers. She spent hours calling music schools and reaching out to contacts. Most teachers were either unavailable or unwilling to take on what they saw as a hopeless case. But one name kept appearing, Theodore Miller. The information about him was limited. He had been a famous violinist in his younger years, performing with major orchestras across Europe. Then about 10 years ago, he simply vanished from public life. Lisa dug deeper and discovered something that made her heart skip. Theodore Miller had studied under Samuel Harris. Samuel had been his first and most important teacher. She found an address in Malibu, a small house overlooking the ocean. No phone number was listed, just a physical location where a master had hidden himself from the world. Lisa called Keanu immediately. I found someone. Samuel Harris's student. His best student, apparently. He lives in Malibu. Does he teach? Not anymore from what I can tell. He disappeared from the music world about 10 years ago. Around the time Samuel died, Keanu understood immediately. He stopped because he lost his teacher. 3 hours later, Lisa's car pulled up to an old cottage on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The paint was faded, the garden overgrown, but there was beauty in it. Keanu stepped out. He had brought nothing except a photograph of Samuel. Lisa squeezed his arm. I'll wait here. This feels like something you need to do alone. Keanu nodded and walked up the sandy path. He knocked and waited. The door opened to reveal a man in his 60s. Theodore Miller had the weathered look of someone who spent more time outdoors than in concert halls. His gray hair was messy, his clothes simple, but his eyes were sharp. Whatever you're selling, I'm not interested, Theo said, already moving to close the door. I'm not selling anything. Keanu held up the photograph. I'm looking for someone who knew this man. Theo froze, his eyes fixed on the image of Samuel Harris. Something in his expression cracked. Where did you get that? I took it 32 years ago, when Samuel was teaching me violin. Theo stared at Keanu, recognition slowly dawning. You're the actor. The one Samuel used to talk about. He talked about me? Constantly. Theo's voice carried wonder and old grief. He said you heard music differently than anyone he'd ever taught. He opened the door wider. Why are you here after all these years? Keanu told him everything. The party, James's challenge, the impossible deadline, and most importantly, his desire to honor Samuel's faith in him. Theo listened without interruption. When Keanu finished, Theo shook his head. You want to perform a 5-minute solo in 4 weeks after not playing for 32 years? That's impossible. Maybe, Keanu met his gaze steadily. But Samuel never believed in impossible. He believed in practice and patience and heart. The words struck something deep in Theo. He turned away, looking out at the ocean. I stopped teaching when Samuel died. He was more than my teacher. He was like a father to me. When he was gone, I couldn't find joy in music anymore. I understand, Keanu said quietly. But I think Samuel would be disappointed if he knew we both gave up on music because we lost him. Theo was silent for a long time. The waves crashed below. Finally, he turned back. Come inside. Let me hear what you remember. Inside Theo's cottage, instruments filled every surface. Violins hung on walls. Sheet music was stacked everywhere. Theo handed Keanu an old violin. Play something. Anything you remember. Keanu took the instrument. The weight felt familiar. His body remembered the posture. Chin position just so. Bow held at the proper angle. But when he drew the bow across the strings, the sound was harsh and uncertain. His fingers stumbled. Notes that should have flowed came out broken. Keanu lowered the violin, frustration on his face. I've forgotten everything. Theo shook his head. No, your hands have forgotten. That's different. He stepped closer. Play that wrong note again. Keanu hesitated, then played it. Now play the correct one. Without thinking, Keanu adjusted his finger and played a cleaner note. Theo nodded. You knew it was wrong before I said anything. Your ear recognized the error instantly. That's what makes you different. Your ear remembers perfectly. It's only your fingers that need retraining. Can that be done in 4 weeks? Theo considered. For most people, no. But I'll work with you every day. You must understand something, though. This will be the hardest thing you've ever done. I understand. No, Theo said firmly. You don't. Not yet. But you will. The training began immediately. Theo was demanding, pushing Keanu through scales and exercises for hours. Every mistake was corrected. But he was also patient. When Keanu grew frustrated, Theo would share stories about Samuel. Samuel believed that technique was just the vehicle, Theo explained during one break. The destination is always emotion. Anyone can learn to play notes correctly. The question is whether you can make those notes mean something. News of Keanu's challenge spread through Hollywood like fire. Entertainment journalists covered it endlessly. Social media was divided between supporters and doubters. James Parker watched with satisfaction. Through Martha Silver, he began quiet sabotage. First, the professional practice studios that Keanu tried to book suddenly became unavailable. Scheduling conflicts, they claimed. Facility maintenance. Then came the rumors. Martha planted stories suggesting that Keanu was hiring a professional violinist to perform in his place. That the whole challenge was a publicity stunt. But Martha didn't stop there. She tracked down Lisa at a coffee shop one morning. Miss Martinez, we need to talk about your career, Martha said, sliding into the seat across from her. Lisa stiffened. I have nothing to say to you. Martha leaned forward. You're a talented young actress with a bright future. It would be a shame if that future suddenly disappeared. She let the words hang. Hollywood has a long memory, and Apex Studios has a very long reach. Are you threatening me? I'm offering friendly advice. Martha's smile never wavered. Stop helping Keanu Reeves. Distance yourself from this ridiculous violin stunt, or you'll find yourself on a list that no agent, no studio, no producer will touch. Lisa felt her heart pounding, but she refused to show fear. She stood up, looking down at Martha with disgust. You know what the difference is between people like you and people like Keanu? He helped me when I was nobody. He treated me with kindness when he had nothing to gain. She grabbed her bag. I'd rather lose my career than lose my soul. Tell your boss that. Lisa walked away without looking back. Her hands were shaking, but her resolve was stronger than ever. By the end of the second week, Keanu's skills were returning faster than anyone expected. His fingers were finding their way back. His tone was improving daily. One afternoon, Theo set down his violin. You've made remarkable progress. More than I thought possible. He paused. But you're still playing on a borrowed instrument. Music this personal requires something more. What do you mean? Theo met his gaze. It's time for you to claim what Samuel left you. His violin has been waiting for 10 years. I think you're finally ready. Keanu felt his chest tighten. The violin he had been too afraid to accept. Do you know where it is? Theo nodded. A friend of Samuel's has been keeping it safe. His name is Benjamin Foster. He owns a small shop in Pasadena that specializes in vintage instruments. Samuel made him promise to hold the violin until you were ready. The next morning, Theo drove Keanu to Pasadena. Foster's vintage instruments occupied a narrow storefront on a quiet street. The window showed antique instruments, their polished surfaces catching the morning light. A small bell chimed as they entered. Inside was a museum of musical history. Violins hung from walls. Cellos stood in corners. The air smelled of wood polish. A man emerged from the back. Benjamin Foster was 75 years old, with white hair and intelligent eyes behind glasses. Theodore Miller, Ben said warmly. It's been too long. I'm sorry I haven't visited, Theo replied. After Samuel passed, I found it difficult. Ben nodded with understanding. He turned to Keanu. And you must be Keanu Reeves. Samuel described you well. He said I'd know you by your eyes. Keanu was speechless. He spoke of you often in his final years, Ben explained. Wondered how you were doing, whether you'd found happiness. Ben led them to a small office and moved to an old safe. Samuel brought the violin to me 10 years ago. He knew he was dying. The doctors had given him only months. He looked at Keanu. He could have left it to anyone. To Theo, to a museum. But he chose you. Why? Keanu's voice was barely a whisper. Ben opened the safe and withdrew a violin case. Because he believed you would return to music someday. He said you had unfinished business with the violin. Before opening the case, Ben reached into a drawer and pulled out an old videotape. There's something else Samuel wanted you to have. This is a recording of his performance at a small community center in 1995. Samuel always said it was one of the best performances of his life. Ben played the tape. The image was grainy, but there was Samuel Harris, younger but unmistakable. In his hands was a violin with an amber body that seemed to glow. Samuel raised the instrument and began to play. The melody was meditation, the same piece Keanu had been practicing. But hearing Samuel play was something entirely different. Every note carried weight and meaning. Samuel swayed gently, his face peaceful, transported to where only the music existed. Keanu watched in silence, tears streaming down his face. When the final note faded and the small audience applauded, Samuel opened his eyes and smiled. The screen went dark. For a long moment, no one spoke. "He was magnificent," Keanu finally said. "He was," Ben agreed. "And he believed you could be too." He placed his hands on the violin case. "Are you ready?" Keanu stepped forward, his heart pounding. He nodded. Ben opened the case. Inside, on faded blue velvet, lay Samuel's violin. The wood was deep amber, aged to perfection. It wasn't a famous instrument, but it had been loved. "This is a German violin from the late 1800s, Ben explained softly. "Samuel found it in Prague when he was young. He used to say it chose him." Keanu reached out. "May I?" "It's yours now." "It always was." Keanu lifted the violin. The moment his hands touched the wood, something shifted inside him. He tucked it beneath his chin and picked up the bow. He drew the bow across the strings. The sound was unlike anything he'd produced before. Rich and warm, with depth that resonated in his chest. Theo stepped closer, his eyes wide. "That tone. I haven't heard that tone since Samuel was alive." Keanu played a simple scale. Then a fragment of meditation. Each note rang true. "It knows you," Ben said quietly. "Instruments remember the hands that play them." Keanu lowered the violin, overcome with emotion. He could feel Samuel's presence in every curve of the wood. "Thank you," Keanu said, his voice thick, "for keeping it safe." Ben placed a hand on his shoulder. "Make him proud."